There's a lot of excitement around the country, in the political nerd world anyway, about an upcoming Supreme Court case that could significantly alter the future of the practice of gerrymandering in the future. And that is being driven by a case from Wisconsin, where Republicans did what they do, which is get into power and then redraw all the districts to amplify their actual support into a significantly larger amount of political support, or political power anyway. Back in 2012, Republicans won 48.6% of the statewide vote for assembly candidates, but captured 60 of 99 seats. In 2014, 52% of the vote yielded 63 seats. And this is after they redrew the districts to benefit themselves. And look, this is the one we're gonna focus on, but understand that this is going on around the country, where if you, I mean, look, we all know that, look, Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, but the Republican wins the presidency. Democratic Senate candidates get more votes than Republican Senate candidates, but Republicans have the Senate. Same thing in the House. Democrats get more votes in House races, but they don't have control of the House.
So we're not this last year. Republicans, I think, got more House.
Really, I thought I read all three. Okay.
In 2016.
And the Senate.
But it's happened, but that very thing has happened before.
Unlike all these other things, the Senate is constructed that way.
Yeah, that's true. That's sort of a structural thing.
Yeah, putting the Senate in there isn't as fair, but it's like they've created these mini electoral colleges in these states.
Basically, yeah.
Gerrymandering.
Yeah, and so now the Supreme Court is going to consider this particular Wisconsin redrawing scheme that they did. In case you're not familiar with gerrymandering, which I wish that we could live in a world where you didn't have to be. Here's a picture that demonstrates the concept, where you have, there's 60% blue in this case, 40% red. You would imagine that if you're gonna have 5 seats, it should be split 3-2. But if you get fancy with your pen, or if you use a sophisticated computer program to break down a district to the block by block level, then you can manipulate it to produce basically anything you want. Also thereby producing districts that make absolutely no sense. And that's what we have in most parts of this country. And so now the Supreme Court is gonna consider it. Theoretically, they could stop it, they could uphold it. We don't know for sure, it looks like it's gonna be close. A lot of people are excited. I'm actually very worried, and one of the reasons is there was a consideration of whether the map should be knocked down or should be stayed, basically, while the court case continues. And that the order granted a request, this is a vote that they already had, to stay the district court's decision. The court's 4 liberal members dissented, but Justice Kennedy was in the majority, and it appears like in many other issues, his vote is going to ultimately determine how they approach the gerrymandering broadly.
It might be telling, but he might have thought that again, that the stay shouldn't apply while the Supreme Court tried the case, that the law should stand as written in the Supreme Court.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm basically just going from very limited information to see if there's something we can draw.
Look, man, I have PTSD from politics, so I presume that this will be a 5-4 decision in favor of Wisconsin, just because.
Right, yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's what happens. So I'm sure, but it is crazy, and all the my pinned tweet for some time, and it was a joke, and really nothing but a joke, which was, I don't know why people are so frustrated with the Electoral College. It's gotten the right pick 60% of the time this century. Like, it's 3 for 5, man. That's great.
I'm sure everybody got the humor.
Well, I still get on a daily basis somebody saying, yeah, because we should just let, the response is almost the same. We should really let New York and California decide who's president. Well, you've just picked New York and California, but if California went Republican and the same thing happened, I'd have made the same joke. Right, because the joke's funny.
Yeah,
right.
It's also
but they would change their minds because it wouldn't work.
Yeah,
I mean, you could. Why not say Texas and Florida? I mean, why those 2 states? Why have you?
Yeah.
It was a flawed plan to begin with. It was a plan we came up with in the late 18th century. We have better ways to do this now.
Yeah, theoretically they're independent commissions.
And gerrymandering, I mean, we got a lot of problems. By the way, I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who's ever done a story about gerrymandering and then said, by the way, I have a refrigerator magnet of Elbridge Gerry.
Yeah,
probably.
By the way, and just so you know, he was pronounced Elbridge Gerry.
He was Gary, that's what I thought.
Gary. So it's really gerrymandering.
Right, it's funny because I've always called him Elbridge Gerry, and then I was thinking, well, maybe he's Elbridge Jerry.
No, he's Elbridge.
It's really like GIF and GIF. It's too late at this point. But yeah, and I've seen a lot of people make that same point, like, oh, we should just let California decide, or they'll show the map of the physical geographic area that was won by Republicans as if Fields vote, or as if California votes. When you say, oh, we should let California decide, what you're saying is, oh, we should let the much larger percentage of the population that lives in California decide? Yeah, probably, because we let people decide, and people live in these big states.
And I guarantee that sometime in our future, a liberal candidate will win because of the way the electoral map is laid out.
I hope
and the
not.
more conservative candidate, and it will still be dumb.
It'll still be dumb.
Like, I am positive it'll still be dumb. And no one is saying that he doesn't get to be president. All we're saying is, hey, going forward, it's worth talking about changing it.
Yeah. And I was a supporter of the Electoral College until recently, until this election, and not because of the results of this election either, but because of how the results happened and the way I was dubious that campaigns could be run in that way and run successfully. It totally proved it to me.
Totally worked, yeah.
The balancing of what the Electoral College tries to do now is the U.S. Senate. I mean, that's the balancing. That's the Electoral College that matters, is that the U.S. Senate is done that way.
Yeah, I've always argued that it's like when people first discover politics and then they read about the Electoral College, they go, well, what? And they don't think that there are potentially some positives, and there are. There are some potential positives, and I've argued those in the past. But yeah, you can't override the more popular will this many times. And we were told immediately after the election, you're not allowed to talk about this now, you're just pissed about the election. Okay, it's been like 6 months. Let's talk about it now. Let's talk about getting rid of the Electoral College now that we've all simmered a bit.
It's failed twice in 5 times because ultimately everyone instinctively wants the person who gets the most votes to win. And I got news for you. We're closer to it sort of working out, or we're just as close to it working out as we are to Hillary won by 3 million votes. Somebody could win by 7 million votes, or 7.5 or 8 million votes, and lose the Electoral College, and that will be galling. And that should already be galling.
The old argument that that the agrarian economy would suffer for it because people wouldn't campaign in Kansas and Idaho because they have so few people there. Well, they don't campaign there now, right?
And by the way,
they go to population centers.
And they didn't really campaign there in 1789.
Well, I mean, states,
right. No, but I mean, as soon as we established it, nobody was going out campaigning.
No, of course.
You had no way to get there. So, I mean, every argument has adapted to the time we're in to protect the value.
But people campaigned for you, like in the 1870s. You had people.
Right. You had people. Well, you can still have people campaign for you because they'll already be there.
And we have the internet, and everybody can watch those ads. But yeah, so the Supreme Court is going to be considering this.
And this is more important, right?
This is definitely more important now. Obviously, we're frustrated, but this is the important thing. And I get why people are optimistic, but understand that when the Supreme Court finally considers something they don't generally talk about, there's no, you never get a case where it's only potential upside. It could be really good, or it could end up being really bad. If they decide that this is totally cool, that sets a precedent that could potentially affect us for a very long time. So very high stakes Supreme Court case that we'll keep an eye on.
We're not the Young Turks, you're the Young Turks. You power this show. Together we built something amazing. We've broken stories like the Donna Brazil story the mainstream media wouldn't break. We built the studio, we built this network. It's now #1, all thanks to you guys. Let's come build it even bigger and stronger. TYTnetwork.com/join.